Okay, so the court's done for the year. I'm looking forward to, well, seeing a summary of what Justice Roberts says on the state of the judiciary. It hasn't been published yet. But yeah, Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship was thumped by the court by 6-3 and by 5-4. The whole concept of getting rid of birthright citizenship was taken down, with the three liberals being joined by April Coney-Barrett and Justice Roberts, which means we have a centrist bloc on the court, which is important. So there's not an people talk about the automatic 5-4. Yeah, but the five is a lot of the times Roberts and Barrett. So it's more of a 3-2-4, and sometimes it's a 3-4-2. Since Gorsuch and Kavanaugh don't always vote with Alito and Thomas, so it's more of a 3-2-2-2. So on the important cases, yeah, it's still the good guys still win a lot of the time. A lot of the time when we think it's a bad decision is because the three Democratic appointees are trying to use to go beyond what the law says it should. Others are saying, well, we should do this instead, without first looking at they want to expand the scope of the law rather than just stick to what's there. So it's there's not many surprises if you know that that's what's going on. So sometimes the three dissenters are setting up for future things, but maybe they're signaling Congress that they need to do something. But yeah, Trump got stuffed. He got stuffed on the Federal Reserve, although that wasn't even serious. He got stuffed on birthright citizenship, in a big way. He has to pay millions of dollars to E. Carrol. So that's, and he has no hope of any relief on those other cases too. The Tish James and the Attorney General of New York should take great heart in what's going on with the lack of immunity Donald Trump has, and such things. So I expect there's hundreds of millions of dollars of Trump's assets that are going to be seized, probably in the next few months. So since I think probably the state of New York will be going to court now, citing the E.G. Carroll case, not getting heard, and say, okay, we expect that this means that we'll let the other things get done too. So, yeah, it's a bad day for Trump. On trans athletes, this was a created issue, a wedge issue. There already are the gay games. Sadly, and maybe the gay games will have a junior, they'll do something for the high school students, and the college students, but there already exists a welcoming place for trans athletes. There always has been, since the issue came about. So, a lot of the Olympic movement and even college athletics has become so commercialized that, yeah. And if anything harms the dollars, somebody does a boycott or something, the people, the NCAA will make it happen that any restrictions are removed, because it's a business. Okay. So the gay games aren't a business. Well, they are. I'm sure there's plenty of pink washing that goes into that too. So, Yeah, which is a version of greenwashing. So, yeah, entertainment's always a business, even if it's just community theater. We still take money. Having been a community theater box office person, we still take the money. So, and get the sponsorships and all that. So, on the campaign finance course, although people will say, "Oh no," there's not going to be a constitutional amendment because there's too many people who get money from on both sides as speech. The long and the short of it is, there's always some kind of tacit coordination between partisan committees and candidates, and between independent fundraisers and candidates. I mean, people have plausible deniability, but really there is none. Candidates are in charge of their campaigns, period. There's no, if they quietly signal, don't do this ad, or maybe do this ad, that's the case. I've been involved in enough politics to know that, there is no such thing as an independent expenditure. It doesn't exist. It's in the law, but, this just rips the Band-Aid off of the reality of the situation. And, the public, if they want to, capitalism is politics supports capitalism until capitalism is dealt with. The problem isn't open campaigning. It is capitalism. Capitalism is the problem with elections because capitalism is the problem, period, okay? The problem is capitalism. Just the fact that it bleeds over into electoral politics and electoral ethics is a side issue of the fact that capitalism goes too far on its own. So, yeah, no shock here. That just means if I, involved in another campaign and fundraising, I can free ride, for liberals, conservatives, Marxists, the Republicans will rue the day that they insisted on free speech because the really rich people are liberals. So, yeah, it's going to, and the really rich fundraisers are Democrats. The Republicans don't have any money. Nobody's giving them money. So, the Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee is crying all the way to the bank on this one. It's like, because the fundraising for Republicans has just been dead. Nobody likes them, especially after this trans ruling. They're not, it's the Republicans shot themselves in the foot again. They should have let this one just slide because, yeah, it's taking, it's independent expenditures happen except they're not really independent. And now that they can openly take party money, the Democrats are going to bury the Republicans. It's just turn the cash on to any Democratic candidate. They're going to be, any Republican candidate's going to be decimated in November. So, the Republicans cut off their nose to spite their face and they win. So, and on the Fed, Trump's offhand comments shouldn't have even gone anywhere. The White House needs to, the last White House ignored a lot of his BS. This White House is not. But these offhand presidential acts, the glorified memos, the really stupid ones are being taken down. In fact, the precedent on the voting rights case is to take down a lot of these memos. It can be seen as vastly limiting presidential powers by sharpie. If you really look at this, the sharpie presidency is vastly limited. you know, on a lot of issues. People haven't seen it that way, but, you know, they should. If you really think about it, you know, government by sharpie just got slammed by a 6-3 majority of the Supreme Court. So Gorsuch said, no, you can't do that anymore. So, yeah, it's not a half bad term. Again, it's, you know, 3-2-2-2 majority. Sometimes it's 7-2, sometimes it's 5-4, sometimes it's 6-3. Because Roberts and Barrett, when the chips are down, are the middle, which is 5. So, and you know, sometime in a year and a half from now, there'll be a Democratic president, and Messrs. Alito and Thomas will either die or resign, and they will not be replaced by Republicans. So, or at least not by conservatives. So, and you know, the traditional mix, where one goes one way, one Republican goes one way, and one Republican goes the other. Gorsuch a lot of the time, and Roberts a lot of the time, votes with the liberals. You know, they're kind of each half and half. And Roberts and Coney-Barrett are reliably sane. And Coney-Barrett has moved to the left. She is the swing. She and Roberts are the swing votes. So, and you know, a lot of the dissents that the 3 liberal votes have, you know, are basically dissenting, saying, you know, we should do the right thing rather than just call the law. And yeah, was never going to fly anyway. They have the luxury of being in the minority, so they can say that. Just like the people who supported Birthright Citizenship memo had the luxury of being in the minority, and so they could say, you know, Thomas and Alito have the luxury of being able to say stupid things because they're in the minority, and they, you know, they know that they can say those things and not have it cause actual harm to the country. So they can let their freak flag fly. So, yeah. The court doesn't, you know, the whole meme about, oh, the court's out of control and all that, and we need to expand the court. Well, don't even talk about expanding the court until after the election, the presidential election. Because you talk about it now, the people will vote for Republicans based on certain issues that are concerned deeply about. Wait until they have the White House before you even talk about, you know, expanding the court. Carrol should just keep his mouth shut about that. James, just don't talk about expanding the court until after there's a Democratic president, because you know there's certain pro-lifers who will say, no, if they're going to do that, we're going to vote Republican. So yeah, don't touch that issue. And you won't need to, because Roberts and Coney-Barrett are liberals, and Gorsuch is often a liberal, or Kavanaugh is often a liberal. So, yeah, it's the court's the court. It's not there's no surprises this year. Thank God. And you know, in a lot of areas, Trump got dumped on. And on the FTC case, the court has not said that the FTC is no longer quasi judicial, quasi legislative. that was not overturned. It was not before the court. So the purpose of the FTC to actually make rules independently has not changed. All this changes the executive is, whether Trump can fire people from the commissioners for the executive functions. They should probably have limited that to the staff director. But because that would be really messed up to have the president go around the commission and fire the staff director. Yeah, that probably doesn't fly. So he has to be able to fire the board. But that just means that in 2 years there's not going to be a Republican on that commission, on the Federal Trade Commission. It's, again, short-sighted thinking. The Republicans are going to rue the day that this case was brought forward, because Democrats will now wholesalely fire people for policy questions from the SEC. It's essentially, they will do, Democratic appointees will do when they're appointed, what the minority of the court would want to do. So as far as doing good things, so the NLRB, oh yeah, that's going to be wholly Democratic in 2 years. The SEC, the CFTC, all the stuff that takes years and years to draft and issue, it's going to go a lot faster in the next Democratic administration. They will much more quickly blow through a liberal agenda on all of those commissions. No more of this. It's gonna all be published in November, just after the election. These things will happen in a year or two, rather than if the Administrative Procedures Act is in the way, they will amend the Administrative Procedures Act to make sure all the Democratic things get rushed through. Because the Republican Party is becoming a functional nothing in this election. So, the question is whether there will be the Democratic Party will split into two, one progressive, one not, and that won't be till the midterms in 2030. That can even think about occurring. So, yeah, the partisanship issue is interesting, but it's pretty predictable. Trump losing on the most important issues, the Fed, Birthright, Eugene Carrol, went as planned. Yeah, not a bad term. Government by Sharpie is a lot more dead than people are saying today, but it's going to be really clear really soon. Thank you, God, and thank you to Justice Roberts. Have a good day.